Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to the Nanit community and to the last installment of this month's Parent Like a Pro Summit. We'll give it a couple of minutes, allow people to join and get settled. I want to welcome everyone. For those of you who were able to attend last week's webinar with Eve Rotsky, thank you for returning and joining us again tonight. For those of you who missed that last talk, make sure to sign up for the Nanit community and watch the playback. It truly is one of the best talks that we've had as part of this programming so far. It is something that I've been thinking about for the last week. So if you're curious about how to strive for more equal parenting partnerships, it really is a good one to check out. So I highly encourage you to do so. I am thoroughly excited for this evening's conversation about parental confidence. I struggle with that one a lot, and I feel like I could use a lot more of it. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Natalie Barnett from Nanit Lab and Dolores Stevens, a leadership development expert who I'm so excited to hear the words of wisdom that you have to share and the expertise that you have to share from the work that you do and how we can apply, what we know of confidence and other aspects of our life to parenting. It's one that really, hits home for me, certainly. Anyway, I will start by introducing myself. I'm Quynh Dang. I lead brand here at Nanit. I'll pass it to Natalie and Dolores to introduce themselves. But first, we would love for you who are joining us to introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're logging in from, how old your kids are. And because tonight's topic is parental confidence, would love for you to share what your parental confidence level is at the moment. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most confident. And if you are at 10, I want to talk to you. I want to know what you know. But from a level of 1 to 10, where you are tonight, I can go first. I am a mom of a 2.5-year-old daughter. So I am in the throes of toddlerhood. And so for those of you who know the struggle, the current beauty and challenges of being in toddlerhood, I would say that my parental confidence level is a strong 4 most days.
Quynh,
I feel like I am
you're amazing.
I feel like I'm in a confidence boot camp. And every day presents new challenges, and it's, a world that I don't know and I haven't done before. This is my first. I feel like the drill sergeant's this little baby and she yells at me a lot. But the beauty is I am inspired to keep going and to learn more and to want to get stronger and better. And I think that's why we're all here. So that's me. And I will turn it over to Dolores if you want to go next. Introduce yourself and let us know how you're feeling.
Yeah. As Quynh said, I'm a leadership development coach. I work with a lot of high growth professionals who, are contending with a lot of uncertainty in their work life, fast growing companies and so on. And that translates really well, I think, to all the uncertainty that shows up in our personal lives when we are new parents, or just new to whatever phase our child's going through. And I'll also add even new to the newest child on the radar too, because I think that no matter how many times you've parented, each child brings their own challenges and nuances with each phase. So I'm really excited to share some of that, just some of the techniques that I think work in all aspects of life with everyone today. And I'll add that I'm calling in from Philadelphia, and I have a 6-month-old baby boy. So I'm very new to parenting. And I'd say today my level's feeling like a 7, and it varies widely. I'd say by the hour.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thanks, Dolores. So my name is Natalie Barnett, and I am the VP of Clinical Research here at Nanit. So I lead Nanit Lab, which is the clinical research arm of Nanit, and we work with universities and institutions around the world who use our data or use our cameras in their research. We also do a lot of our own internal research, and I'm excited to share some of our sort of fairly recent findings with everyone this evening. I am the mum of 3 boys. I live in New York City, and I'm in New York City currently. Today, my parenting confidence is a lot higher than other areas of my life, confidence in other areas of my life. So I'll actually take the parenting confidence today as kind of a win. I actually had all 3 children did something today that I was actually almost proud of, and which is a win for me. So I would say I'm an 8 today.
That's awesome. See, I knew it. I was with the right people. I knew it. So if you just joined us, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're logging in from, how old your children are, and where you are today on the parental confidence spectrum in terms of level, on a scale of 1 to 10. How are you feeling? And hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll feel slightly better than the number that you started out with. Just hearing you 2 talk and where you are, I'm certain of that. So we can get right into it. As I said, my name is Quynh. I joined Nanit about a year ago. I lead the most amazing brand team here at Nanit. They are responsible for all of this content and programming and everything that you see on the public channels of Nanit. And the premise for this talk really came through the conversations and the work that we do at Nanit that is core to Natalie's work. And that is, it really stemmed from the data and the research that Natalie's team at Nanit Lab does. And this was really a culmination of a series of studies that they have been doing for the past few months around several topics, right? What we do at Nanit Lab is we try to understand the state of parenting today against topics that really range from sleep to teething to feeding to parental leave and parental wellness and postpartum anxiety and everything in between and beyond. And as we were coming together on the recent studies that Natalie's team had conducted and we were analyzing the data, what was really interesting was that there was a thematic concept that kept coming up to the forefront. And it started to become really clear that there were these categories or pillars that seemed to very much connect or impact parental confidence as a central umbrella. And so we developed what we're calling the Parental Confidence Report, which is launching very soon. And so again, if you're not a member of the Nanit community, please sign up and you'll be the first to receive the report. The various pillars that we are finding that impact parental confidence as a whole include physical well-being, PMADS, which stands for perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. That includes postpartum anxiety and depression as we know it more broadly. It includes systemic and societal factors as another pillar. And then of course, self-doubt, which is the pillar that we'll be discussing today. And I'll start with you, Natalie, because based on all of that, there appears to be some science behind the idea of if you believe it, you can achieve it within parenting. Can you talk about how that shows up in the research that you've done?
Sure. So Quynh, thanks for that introduction. And I just wanted to take a little bit of a back step for a second and say that we a couple of years ago, actually, we had noticed that when we were asking parents about their confidence levels or confidence in managing their child's sleep, they were much higher in our Nanit families than what they were in other published studies of other American families. And it was something that we had then decided to sort of do a deeper dive on and really sort of try and understand a little more about, how confident our parents are and why they're feeling confident in their parenting. And we really see very clearly in our data that sleep and infant sleep and parental mood and parental confidence are really tightly linked. And so we can really see that when babies are sleeping well, parents are sleeping well, and parents are less likely to be depressed and also far more likely to be feeling confident in their parenting. And so at Nanit, we really take this holistic view that we want the whole family to be sleeping well, and the whole family to be functioning well, and the whole family to be, happy and confident. And, and we know that, one of the best things that you can give your babies is happy parents. And we really want parents who are feeling happy, feeling confident, spending time together if they, if you have a partner. And so we really have started to take a much deeper dive and a longer look at parental confidence. And one of the interesting findings that we have published on recently is around confidence in feeding choice. So we can see that mums are sleeping better when they're confident in the way they feed their baby. So if they're confident, and we asked them whether they were bottle feeding or breastfeeding and formula feeding, or feeding breast milk from a bottle, and it didn't matter how the baby was fed as to how they slept. Like there's a lot of literature looking at, if babies sleeping better when they're formula fed or breastfed. We didn't see any differences in the method of feeding as to how well the baby slept. But the big difference that we did see was that when mums particularly were confident in their choice of feeding method, that mums slept a lot better and babies slept better. So we just keep coming back to this idea of confidence, that how can we make, how can we help everyone feel, confident in their parenting and in their choices, when there is so much that is coming at parents from, all different angles, whether it's social media or, colleagues or parents or friends, and people are inundated with information. And I think it's really important for us to be, helping them sort of navigate that information and feel good about the choices that they're making. But I would really love to ask, Dolores, about that too, because I know that this really, comes back to a lot of your work too. So I'd love you to jump in there, Dolores, if you can.
Yeah. No, what you're describing makes a lot of sense. And I like how like one reinforces the other, and it's almost like this virtuous, cycle upwards. And I think we're always kind of spiraling upwards or spiraling downwards, like moment to moment, where it's like our train of thought can be kind of moving in a more expansive way or a more contracted way. So when I think about, the idea of confidence and self-doubt when I'm coaching clients, I like this: anxiety needs a place to land. Yeah. So there's a really great tool that just, there are a couple of tools I want to introduce today, but one is just raising awareness around our inner state of mind. So if you notice that self-doubt come online, just checking in if you're in a kind of resourced, open state of mind, curious, or contracted, kind of fearful state of mind, and just noticing where you are can really support, what comes next. So, because how we're choosing to, our mindset's really coloring everything we see, and then, there are techniques to kind of shift into a more open state of mind, and that really supports being able to, get curious about feeding schedules and, nursing choices, or get curious about the current sleep patterns that are working or not working for your kid.
I'd like to ask a question to follow up on that, Dolores, because I love that in terms of understanding where you are from a mindset standpoint, and the fact that you have the ability to shift back and forth, and it is within your it's available to you if you can access it. So if you're in a state of overwhelm, as we, often are as parents, how are you able, can you offer up a couple of tips or tools in terms of how we can get to that point of access? Because I think when we're in overwhelm within parenting, you just, you shut down in a sense, right? And you're just in survival mode, and you don't have a lot of access to additional kind of resources to be able to clearly define, what your options are in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So so there are a whole number of ways into this, to kind of tackle this mindset. But and the first step really is just raising awareness. Kind of, where am I right now? Right, I'm in a contracted state of mind, just feeling that tension. And you can even check in, like, how do you know? And there are probably some really familiar flags. We all have different, you mentioned overwhelm, Quynh, so that might be one of your flags. For me, there's like it's almost like a duck paddling underwater. It's like, ferviously, like looking for, the right word, but looking for more deep data and intel, and what can I learn more about this situation. So we all have different kind of modes that we jump into when we get that kind of contraction. And one tool that I wanted to offer the group today is tuning into what are the facts of the situation and what are my stories about these facts. And we can start by really clearly defining facts as, what would a camera record? It's really simple, and it's actually kind of a fun, that's the definition I always use, and it really works well with Nanit, since that's
You're hired, Dolores.
Yeah, that just works out really nicely. But really, like, what would a camera record, and getting really articulate about those facts. So, and then of course our mind is like a story making machine. We're taking facts, and like in nanoseconds, we're adding all this like layer of interpretation onto the situation. So when you notice, okay, I'm in a contracted state of mind, I've got that self-doubt creeping in, or overwhelm, then okay, what are the facts? So I can run through an example from my own life, if that's helpful. My son was sleeping much less than the kind of average baby at between like 2 and 3 months. I was really kind of concerned about that. And so the fact of the situation is he was sleeping like 12 hours within a 24-hour period. And I was reading online, 14 to 16 hours was more normal. And and so then we can say, okay, the fact is he's sleeping 12 hours on average. Another fact is, on average, babies sleep more. And then the stories I was making up about that included, like, this is a problem. He's not getting enough sleep. He won't get certain development. This will be a problem for him long term. I'm doing something wrong. I haven't conquered like the nighttime sleep or a better nap schedule. I'm not reading his sleeping cues right. So I've got all kinds of stories that involve a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-blame. And if I can parse those two and say, okay, what's the fact? And then I can start to get curious about my stories. The first one being, it's a problem. Is it a problem? I mean, yes, I'd like him to sleep more, so I have a little more time for myself and self-care, but is it a problem, really? And I can start to get, by engaging that curiosity and starting to question our stories, we can kind of shift gears a little bit.
And I think that's a really common, I just want to jump in on the sleep bit for a minute there, Dolores. I think it's really, really common for parents to be really worried that their baby is not sleeping enough, when the fact is that there is a huge range of normal of what babies sleep. So what is normal for your baby may well be different to what is normal for my baby and what is normal for Quynn's baby. So, and I just feel, I feel bad that parents are questioning their parenting, and particularly questioning their choices around sleep, when there is just so much, there's so much variability when it comes to infant sleep. And the bigger thing that I would really just sort of a little message about sleep that I would love people to take away is that I want you to watch your baby. Like, if your baby is happy, seems well rested and content during the day, your baby's getting the sleep that they need. And that could be 12 hours for one baby, and it could be 18 for the baby next door. And so there's just such a range of normal that it can be really hard for parents who are reading, oh my gosh, my baby should be sleeping 14 to 16 hours a day, when in actual fact, lots of babies need more sleep than that, and lots of babies need less sleep than that. So I think it can be really hard for people to navigate all of that information when, we haven't been trained to be parents. We have all done a lot of training to do all of the jobs that we are very proficient at, but we've never been trained to be parents. And it's really hard to go into parenting, particularly as, many of us are, the type A parents who are very used to having everything, very much having our lives very much in control. And we go to this place where a lot of things feel very much out of control, and it can be really hard to deal with that. And a lot of, self-doubt comes into that. I do want to just quickly give my sort of 3 top tips for when you are sort of dealing or, feeling that self-doubt or lack of confidence. The first thing that I would say is remember that you are good at many things, and remind yourself that you're good at many things, and try and do something that you are good at during the day. So I have a friend who is very good at cleaning her refrigerator and having a very organized refrigerator. And when she feels bad, she does that, and it makes her feel very good about herself. I am very good at putting together a platter of cheese and bread and a glass of wine after dinner. And I know that it always makes me feel better when I do that. And so I would love you to and if you can't do something that makes that you know that you are good at and you feel confident in, just think about the things that you are very good at, if that can be, something that you can do. The second thing I would say is try and take that baby out for a walk in the stroller if you can. Everything feels better and seems better when you can get outside, get some exercise and fresh air. And typically most babies are happy with some movement and, in that stroller. And it's just a really nice way to sort of reset and feel a little more grounded. And the third thing I would say is find people who make you feel good. Don't hang out with the people who make you feel inadequate or bring on that self-doubt. Try and surround yourself with people who make you feel good, because there's lots of people who are going to make you feel crappy. And particularly when you become a new parent, there may be friendships that go by the wayside, even just for a short period of time. And that's okay. You need to be with people who are making you feel good. So they're my sort of 3 tips that I would give.
And Dolores, on the note that, as new parents, we've not had the experience or, to draw from, how do you work with your clients in terms of helping them to build confidence in other aspects of their life where they may not have had the experience? And how does that, how can that be applied to parenting if you're a new parent?
Yeah, I really love what Natalie's pointing to with reminding ourselves of all the ways that we are good at many things and how we started in a really beginner mindset. We or not beginner mindset, but we started as a beginner at any number of things in our lives. And so I think there's something to that kind of positive self-talk and reminding ourselves of like, it's a journey and it's a process. And the confidence comes through experience. A lot of times, I've read how confidence comes through, trying at something, even if you try and fail and you try and fail and then you try and you got it and you can move a little bit further along that. So that's part of just the building that muscle, and having some grace as you go through that process is really, really, it certainly makes the process more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And then there's another piece of confidence that I like to remind people about, which is that we all have this innate wisdom, capability, intuition. And when you can get kind of grounded, even if you're in a completely unknown situation, if you can kind of get grounded, and this points to Natalie's other tip of like going out for a walk, kind of doing something for yourself that really feels supportive and grounding, we're often able to tap into that innate understanding. So there's kind of 2 paths here. One is that it's going to take trial and error, and as you rack up some wins, that confidence is just inevitably going to come. And the other is you have it within you. And I know that sounds a little bit, sometimes hard to find or realize, but just take it as an experiment. Try it out, taking a deep breath and tuning into Like, what's my gut say about this situation? So those are my two ideas for people seeking out that confidence.
I do want to, Natalie, jump back to sleep because we were going down that path. And obviously your expertise within pediatric sleep, you have so much data, on this topic. What do we know about how lack of sleep or the quality of sleep impacts parental confidence?
It's a really great question, Quynh, and I love it. So we know that when babies are not sleeping well, parents do not feel as confident in their parenting or in their ability to manage their child's sleep problems. And it can become just so all-consuming when your baby is not sleeping well. And so I really want to, and I really think that, sleep is vital to, to parental confidence, in my opinion. And whilst I don't want people to be crazy about sleep, I want people to understand that sleep is as important to the babies as nutrition or exercise. And I want them to be focused on sleep and creating healthy sleep habits, and, and sort of knowing that longer term, this is going to lead to a lifetime of sleep health, and also a much lower likelihood of parents developing postpartum depression, of, a much higher likelihood of parents sleeping well, and then, then baby sleeping through the night and parents sleeping through the night. It can be incredibly difficult for parents to be waking up multiple times during the night for really an extended period of time. We absolutely do it in those first, in those early months where babies need to be eating, fairly consistently overnight. One thing that I just wanted to mention was that a recent study that we presented at the Yale Sleep Symposium looked at partner involvement in overnight care. And so we saw that when partners were involved in overnight feeding and overnight care, maternal sleep was much better than for those mothers whose partners were not involved in any overnight care or overnight feeding, and the infants were sleeping better as well. So I really would, if there's one thing that I could encourage our families to do, it would be to, if you have a partner, to talk to that partner and see if you can work out a way to try and split the load of the nighttime caregiving. And that can look different for every family. So for example, it could be that, one partner, goes to bed very early, and, the person who is more likely to be the lark, the person who's going to be up early in the morning, the person who is, wants to go to bed early can get to bed early, and then the partner can do the first feed of the night, and then the partner can get to bed, and the partner can sleep for the second half of the night, and the first partner can be on for the second half of the night. And thinking about how you can split that night depending on your own personal chronotype, or when you sort of naturally want to be awake or asleep, but also just thinking about how we can sort of split those duties, because it is just an incredibly overwhelming task for new parents to be taking care of a baby sort of all night long for these very extended periods of time. So if there's one thing that I could suggest that you do, would be talk to your partner about thinking about ways that you could share in that nighttime caregiving. It may also be that you have, one partner it's one night on, one night off, or 2 nights on, 2 nights off, or and I know that there's all sorts of different permutations and combinations of families and, feeding methods. But if you can think about a way to, and I know for a lot of nursing parents, it can be difficult to manage, but I know that there's a way to do it. If you can think about having, perhaps a bottle of pumped milk for one of the nighttime feeds, so that breastfeeding person can get, a good block of sleep. I really want to try and think about prioritizing both partners' sleep, if we can, because I know longer term it's really going to be helpful to the whole family if we can prioritize that sleep.
And by partner, I mean, it could be a relative that can come help nights. It can be a neighbor. It can be a friend. It can be a postpartum doula, right? Like the assistance can really come in all forms.
For sure, for sure. But if there's someone who can help, even for some part of that overnight, it's going to be incredibly helpful.
Amazing. Dolores, I'd love to go back to you. And I'm very curious about how you observe clients who are parents and whether you find that people who become parents end up feeling more confident because, they've developed an entirely different set of skills that perhaps, they can bring into other aspects of their life, or is it the reverse, but going back to the, if you believe it, you can achieve it attitude that, are more confident people, more confident as parents as well. How are you observing that?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. And I think it really varies. And I'll talk through a couple different scenarios I've seen. And I'd love to actually throw this out to the chat too, to see if people feel that they've become more or less confident as a parent, or if they find it's a similar level of confidence in their professional life and their personal life. But yeah, I'd love to just hear a little bit from the audience. So I would say that I could see it. I could see it both ways. One is, there's an element of like having a child can be kind of reality shifting, and so suddenly things that seem like such a big deal beforehand, like am I going to get that email out? Suddenly just needs to take a lot less time and matters way less. And so there might be like a boom in confidence on like the mundane stuff of life that just needs to get done and just doesn't get any mind space anymore. And that's pretty, and even just taking notice of that, like, wow, I've gotten really efficient with, email, or I've gotten really I have a new level of like perspective on a whole bunch of aspects of life. That can be really confidence inducing just in itself to take stock of. Another way I've seen it kind of play out is that as you are, if you're experiencing a lot of challenges in your personal life with parenting, and this also goes with just other aspects of personal life, it can really put pressure on your professional life. Even if they are seemingly unrelated, you are the same person showing up in all aspects of your life. So so that's where I like to say, like, go gently and be kind to yourself. Because that, is just have some perspective of what you're going through, especially, parenting, I think really comes in ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys. And so then it works in reverse. Like if things are just, going fantastic with your, in your family life, you might find like you're just in flow at work too. So, take advantage of those peaks when they're coming. Yeah, so those are just a couple ways that I think the two are interrelated. And the biggest thing is just to remember, like, you're the same person that's showing up in all arenas. Like we like to really, it's valuable to have boundaries, and it's, and we like to think that we put on like a different hat in different, places, but we're bringing all the same stuff with us. Yeah.
As a new parent yourself,
Yeah.
what sorts of things from your work and what you do for others have you been able to bring into your own parenting? And if you could share any of those tools with us, that would be amazing.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's been a really rich playground for all of my coaching skills that I've developed with clients and for myself. I just kind of see it as like a whole new sandbox to use some of these mindset tools. And I think one of the biggest things I'll share is that just like I was saying, I was using fact versus story for myself when I was kind of grappling with like, is my son sleeping enough? And even just that first question of like, kind of, where am I in a state of trust, in a state of contraction, fear? I was using that a lot, especially this is the first 3 months. My son had colic, so there was a lot of crying, and so there was kind of the best I could do is just acknowledge I'm in a state of threat. And that's it. I can't, I'm not really available for to do a lot of personal work. And one thing that brought me a tremendous amount of relief in the process is recognizing like, I'm having my experience over here. My son is having his experience. My husband's having his experience. And we're all just humans, like having our own personal experience with all the bundle of sensations that come with that. And so a inquiry that I found really powerful is, can I let my son have his experience? Not trying to control it. Of course, I'm going to support him in every way I can, but just recognizing that there has to be some separation there, and there's only so much we can each do, and so I'll just offer that as kind of like a bringing that inquiry into whatever you're experiencing, and not kind of collapsing and putting a lot of pressure on yourself to manage everything, because a lot of stuff is out of our control.
Yeah. And to that point, Dolores, I think it's really easy for us when we are, in this cycle or sort of spiraling down to be generalizing and saying, oh my God, this is always terrible. This is always horrible. This is always going to be bad, or this is what a horrible blah, blah, blah night's sleep, or what a horrible blah, blah, blah. And I think one thing that can be incredibly helpful is to be able to stop and think, okay, this was a bad day. Tomorrow is going to be a new day. Like, I don't want to think that just because things were bad today, that it's going to be bad for the next 4 weeks or months. I mean, particularly with the newborn, things change every day. And I think it's really easy for us to just be trapped in this mindset of, oh my God, this is just, when you're particularly having a bad day, to say, oh, this is going to last forever. And I think it can be helpful to sort of take that step back and say, okay, this was a bad day. Let's put it to bed, and then we can start again tomorrow.
Absolutely. And that goes right back to like just getting granular and specific about what am I experiencing. Because that generalization actually really colors our whole outlook and cuts off that like availability for curiosity and problem solving. So that, I really love that.
2 follow-ups from what you just both said. I'll start with you, Dolores. I liked your note about how everyone in your home is having their own experience. And I love that way of looking at it, because often, well, I'll just talk about my home. The assumption is the experience is a shared one, because you're in this new phase together, and I have a great partner, and I don't have any complaints, or I shouldn't be complaining in any way, but it does feel like your environment's completely shifted, and you aren't having a shared experience. And so I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit, and if there's anything that you can offer to help keep that connection while everyone's having their own experience.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think to start, there's an element of just bringing like candor into the room. So getting really open about what each of our personal experiences are. And Quynh, I loved how you just did that, instead of saying everyone is experiencing that. Wait a second, I'm experiencing this in my home. I love that, because that's exactly it, to just get specific. Oh, I'm experiencing like a tremendous lack of sleep because I'm the nursing parent, and I'm feeling all this pressure, and that's what's happening over in my world. What's going on over there?
Yeah.
And opening that up, and and then my husband might share, like, he shared, well, I feel all this like guilt, you're doing all these things and I don't know how to help, and
Right.
you're micromanaging me when I do help, and some of our dialogue. But just kind of opening up that dialogue is so powerful, to realize like, oh, right, there's a whole nother world over there in the same room, and a whole nother perspective that actually, there's I think the best parenting comes from that, diverse perspectives brought together, and through community and shared experience. So I think kind of just opening up and getting really curious with each other, candid with each other too. It can be very scary to be candid about what your experience is. And here's another tool that ties back into fact and story, you can try the language of the story I'm telling myself is
Mhm.
yada, yada. And so it could be, the story I'm telling myself is, I might say this to my husband, is that you don't want to help with nighttime feedings, just to play with that. And then, he might say, well, the story I've been telling myself is that you won't let me help. And so then that opens up this dialogue. Okay, so we both have these stories that are creating the experience that neither of us want right now.
Right.
And and so it owning it as a story is a way of disarming it from being righteous about well, my belief is correct, I know I'm right, you don't want to help. So yeah, just from drawing from some real conversations.
I think, Natalie, what I assume you would, conclude from the data that you have is we have a shared goal, right? For example, with sleep, our shared goal is that we want this baby to sleep because we want to sleep. Can you talk a little bit more about that data point in terms of, families who have an easier time getting their children to sleep and how that impacts their relationship and sort of environment overall?
Yeah, for sure. And Quynh, it's a really good point. I mean, we see that there's a lot of stress between parents when their child doesn't sleep, because they're typically they're frustrated because they don't know how to deal with their child's sleep, but also they're both sleep deprived as well. And so it just is this perfect storm of bad things. So it's this perfect storm where, if your baby is not sleeping, you're not sleeping, no one feels good. And it can become very toxic very quickly. And I think you had a really great point, Dolores, that I think you really need to be talking to each other, because you're coming at this from different places with different experiences. You could be, saying to yourself, I'm so angry with my partner because they're not helping. And the partner can be thinking, I don't want to help because I'm constantly told that I'm not doing it well and not doing it good enough. So I'm just going to, it's easier for me to just bow out because I feel bad when I try and help and I'm told that I'm not doing things well. So I think it's really important, if you have a partner, to be talking to that partner, and to both of your previous points, to really sort of understand where the other person's coming from and help support each other. You have created this beautiful family and you want this family to last, and the way that family is going to last is if everyone is communicating, everyone is happy, and the family is functioning well. And a lot of that comes when your baby is sleeping and when you're getting all of the sleep that you need. So we also see really pretty clearly that we actually did an interesting study last year around sexual activity in parents, and we saw fairly clearly that the parents who were up visiting their baby a lot during the night were parents who were less sexually active than parents whose babies were sleeping through the night. So so not only is it going to be great for your relationship, for your emotional sort of part of your relationship, it's also going to be great for the sexual part of your relationship, which I know for most people is very, very important. So I would encourage you to be thinking about trying to get those babies to sleep as best they can. And just to that point, a couple of things that I would love to sort of add about that. So in those first couple of months, most babies are not able to self-soothe, and you need to be the one soothing them. So if you need to rock, you need to hold, you need to pat, you need to do whatever you do to keep that baby calm and keep that baby happy. After about that 4-month mark, most babies, assuming that they were born on time, assuming that they're healthy, are capable of self-soothing. And we know that when babies are able to get themselves to sleep at the beginning of the night, it's much easier for them to get themselves back to sleep when they wake up during the night. So if there's one thing that if you are having problems with your baby sleeping, one thing that I would try and focus on would be the beginning of the night. So trying to once you can get your baby to fall asleep by themselves at the beginning of the night, those nighttime feedings, those nighttime wakings will drop away. All babies wake up during the night, but a lot of babies know how to get themselves back to sleep. And what we don't want is a baby who is, 10 months, 12 months, waking up in the middle of the night and needing something that they can't get for themselves. When we're in that situation, it's very frustrating for a baby to need a breast or need a bottle or need to be held or need to be rocked or need something that they can't get for themselves. And we don't want your babies to be frustrated. We want them to be, waking up during the night, seeing that it's dark, hearing that white noise and just getting themselves back to sleep. And they might do that sort of 4 or 5 times during the night. But if they're not able to get themselves to sleep at the beginning of the night, you're going to be hearing from them during the night. So if there's one thing that I could have you focus on when we think about infant sleep, it would be that beginning of the night. So if you can, and there's all sorts of ways that you can, help your baby learn how to fall asleep at the beginning of the night. And whatever you do, I just want you to be consistent about it. So there's lots of different methods out there for having your baby sort of learn how to fall asleep. But again, I just be as consistent as you can, and your babies will work out how to get themselves to sleep and then back to sleep, and which then means that you'll be able to get to sleep, whenever you want, and be getting all of the sleep that you need overnight. And it's life-changing to go from having a baby who is waking up 7 times a night to having a baby who you put down at 7 p.m. and you do not hear from again until 7 a.m. Truly, that is a life-changing experience. And it can be your experience, very, very soon, with some dedicated time and, and dedicated effort. That said, some babies learn how to sleep really quickly and easily and naturally without much effort. But there are some babies who need that, that dedicated time and effort to learn, how to sleep, but they all can.
On that note, I think it's actually a great segue to switch over to some questions that we've received in the chat. I just want to reserve the last few moments to answer some of those that have come in. And there's this one question I think just hits on this last topic a bit, so we can just round out that last point in terms of consistency and also parenting, connection. The question is, what if you and your partner have different parenting styles? How do you find a common ground? And then how do you get to that level of consistency?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I'm happy to take it, Dolores, and then you can jump in if you like. I think it's really important to talk. You've got to, you have to come together and find some common ground. So, and you need your partner to understand where you're coming from, and you need to understand where they're coming from, because I know that there's common ground there. But I think if you talk it through, then you can sort of come to a place where it works for both of you. Some of you are, one of you is going to have to give on something and the other one's going to have to give on something else. But I know that you can find some common ground if you talk about it. And I just think it's really important to have that, open communication and open dialogue with our partners as much as we can, because it's really easy to, if someone has a different opinion to you or a different style to you, I think it's really easy to sort of, just be focused on the thing that you disagree with without realizing there's actually a whole ton of stuff that you do agree on, and maybe trying to focus on that rather than the things that you disagree on. Dolores.
Yeah, no, I'll add, I think it's really valuable to kind of stand for each other's points of view. So what I mean by that is, like, there's wisdom in both of your points of view. And there might, and if we can kind of relax the righteousness when we're really kind of opposed to our partner's point of view, if we can relax that feeling of like, I'm right, they're wrong, and instead say, okay, they're offering me something valuable, I'm offering something valuable, and then kind of come together with that from that space. And you can even, talk about it that way with your partner. I want to stand for your point of view, and I want you to stand for my point of view. And we can even, you can also kind of play a game where you argue for your sides and then argue for the opposing side. And that's a really powerful way to kind of open up our minds a little bit. So there's some, but it all starts with that dialogue and knowing that you're going to come together. You're going to commit to, a solution jointly.
Love that. There are a couple questions in here about shame and judgment. So one relating to feeding. So how can I feel confident in my decisions between breast milk, nursing, and formula? There's so much shame and judgment out there. So I have a lot of doubt. And, there's another first-time mom who is trying not to get wrapped up in comparing herself to others. So I think, those two together present common themes that we hear a lot right here at Nanit in terms of shame, judgment, and comparison. So how would you both offer up, your guidance against that?
Yeah. Natalie, do you want to start? Yeah.
I can start, Dolores. I think that in terms of thinking about the feeding question, I think it's really hard for new parents to decide how they're going to feed their baby, and it's a very, very personal and sort of emotive decision. And I think, and I guarantee you that whoever asked this question is doing an amazing job. I am very, very sure of that. And I think the fact that you're here and that you're asking this question sort of tells me that you are doing an amazing job. So I want you to know that, like, you are doing a phenomenal job. This baby is lucky to have you as a parent. And I think you need to focus on, all of the, that your baby is gaining weight, your baby is sleeping well, your baby is happy during the day. You're doing something right, focus on all of those things and forget about the naysayers. It doesn't matter if you are breastfeeding or formula feeding or whatever permutation and combination of, of feeding that you're doing with your baby. I want you to own that decision and move on. There's so many, there's going to be other things that will, and I know that and I know that you're in the middle of it, and it's a really very, very personal, difficult thing to be dealing with. But know that you're doing an amazing job, and you can be focusing on something else. Don't worry about feeding. You're doing great.
Yeah. I'll just add, I think, getting clear on kind of defining what success is as something that's really a win for your baby. So being well fed, being full, and well nourished. So if you define success that way, then what type of formula, or if it's breast milk versus formula, kind of falls away, and you can just stay laser focused on, is my baby getting the nourishment it needs? And then really relax into that and focus on that. And then the other thing I'd offer is that, like, we all look to our tribe for input, like, what's the best way to do things. And I was certainly doing a lot of that when I was looking at all the different camps of, ways to soothe babies and all, so on. But after you've looked for input from the tribe, after you've kind of read different points of view, again, like, kind of come back to your inner knowing and your knowledge of, like, what's going to work for you and your baby, and that's it. And your family, and the people that you have supporting you, so that that everything else can really fall away with that. Yeah.
Thank you. Last question, mostly because I want to know this answer too. But ways to help my confidence when my toddler is going through a rough tantrum.
Oh, can I start with this one? I think that, of course, I'm not there yet, Quynh, so I not speaking from personal experience, but I think there's a really great value in starting with, like, where am I as my toddler's having their experience, and this, am I feeling that contraction and fear or judgment? This is wrong. They shouldn't be having this experience. Tuning into yourself and kind of taking a breath and getting grounded. and taking care of yourself there for a moment is going to make you much more available to be with your child as they have their experience. And then I think it's also, from the reading I've done on this, toddlers are working out their self-regulation. They're not sure yet how to manage some of the big feelings that come through. And so reminding yourself it's really normal. and helping to so I'll pause there, but I want to invite you to tune into yourself and that inquiry. Can I let my child have their experience, and how can I kind of be grounded and supported myself and that for them through that?
Yeah,
in my experience too, I grew up in an Asian home, and very traditionally Asian. And so the way that I was raised is very different from the way that I'm raising my daughter. And so I realized that when she was exhibiting certain behaviors that a normal toddler exhibits, I would feel triggered because I would never have been allowed to behave this way, even though I, at that age couldn't help it either. And so I've had to kind of pull that apart, right? And reconcile my experience versus what the experience that I'm trying to create now for my daughter. And I think the realization that I've come to that it is a personal trigger of mine actually has helped, because it's to your point, right? Like getting to that level of awareness first and understanding what's happening with you, then you can know where to go or what to do. I haven't mastered it by any means, but like that realization, that step one was really an important one for me.
And I've got a couple of things to add to that. Look, when toddlers are testing limits and testing boundaries and working out what they can get away with, and it's our job as parents to be setting those limits and setting those boundaries. And it's really easy for a toddler to be wanting some more independence than what they're given, and it can be very frustrating for them to want something and not be able to get it. And so that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say would be that very often our toddlers are looking for attention, and they don't care if it's negative attention or positive attention. So if they're throwing a tantrum and we're getting upset or giving them a lot of attention for that behavior, the behavior is going to continue. So I like to try and think about flipping a switch, switching our mindset up, and trying to give as much positive attention as we can during the day, so that we can, and then try and ignore the negative behavior. So we can, and I know that you have taught these toddlers some amazing things over the last couple of years that they're doing every day that we're not really recognizing, right? Like, that's such an amazing job that you put your toys away all by yourself, or that you took your shoes off without me asking you to, or you put your fork down, next to the plate, or you put your plate over on the sink, or whatever it is. Think about finding as many little things as you can to be praising them for and making them feel good. I want them to be, feeling good about themselves and feeling confident, so that then they're not going to need the negative attention. So we can I want to focus on that positive behavior as much as we can and try and ignore the negative as much as we can. The other thing that I would love to think about is trying to give them as many choices as we can during the day, not an overwhelming number of choices, but an appropriate amount of choice. So to be able to say, would you like to wear your green shirt or your red shirt? You can choose green shirt, red shirt. You don't want to choose? That's fine. I will choose for you. And we're good. But I don't want you to open the closet and say, choose whatever you want, but just an appropriate amount of choice. And there's so many ways that you could build that into the day. It could be green shirt or red shirt. It could be, Crocs or sneakers, or it could be the yellow book or the green book. Would you like to play with blocks? Would you like to play with cars? There's so many things that we can give them choices around. And I think we want to celebrate the choice that they're making. And if they don't make a choice, that's fine. You make the choice for them and you move on to the next time that you're able to give them a choice. so that we can build their confidence and build their independence, so that they feel like they have a bit of control. A lot of toddlers just feel like they don't have any control, and we want to give them an appropriate amount of control, and an appropriate amount of independence. Like, I'm not going to say to your, 3-year-old or 2-year-old Quynh, go down to CVS and buy me some milk. But I would say that to my, to my 13-year-old. But I would say to her that, I expect her to, sit in the high chair and not throw her food on the ground, or sit at the table and eat her dinner,
Oh, Natalie.
or whatever it is. So
I won't invite you over for dinner.
but we want to give them an appropriate amount of independence and an appropriate amount of choice. And I think we see toddlers rise to the occasion when they're given some control over their day and over their choices throughout the day. And I think it's because it's really easy. Sorry, I'm going on and on, but I think it's really easy for us to be, constantly saying, don't do this, don't do that. Don't, no to this, no that, climb down from there, and
Right.
I think it can be really great for us to just think about that, a slight mindset shift to be saying, hey, would you like to have strawberries or bananas for your, with your dinner? Would you like to have, this book or that book? Would you like to wear these pajamas or these pajamas? Like, just giving them opportunities for choice throughout the day can really help, build that confidence and help hopefully get rid of those tantrums fairly soon.
Awesome. I'll keep you posted.
Okay.
Well, we're out of time. Thank you both so much for joining us and sharing all of your amazing, knowledge and wisdom with all of us. I certainly feel better. I really hope that those of you who have joined us feel a little bit better as well. If you missed any part of this conversation or want to check out others, please join the Nanit community and you have access to all of it. I, again, want to thank you both and to everyone for taking the time out tonight. I appreciate it. And we'll see you back next time.
Thank you.
Quynh.
Pleasure.